Hello, my name is Memo. This is my channel, FancyMemo. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to this week. We're continuing this week, but we're not talking about 2024 music anymore. As you saw, hopefully, if you saw it yesterday, I talked about my top 50 songs of the decade so far, since we are at the midway point. Today, I will be talking about my top 50 albums of the decade so far, which I'm very excited to do. I love all of these albums that I'm about to talk about. Most of these albums landed in like my top 10 of the year that they were in. So you best believe I love these albums a lot. I hope you've heard them, or I'm putting you onto some of these projects if you for some reason haven't heard them already. Most of them are pretty popular though, so you most likely have heard most of these albums. And yeah, I'm very excited to talk about it. There's been a lot of great music released, so yeah, I'm excited. But before we jump into it, if you like music related content like this, please subscribe, since that is what I do here. And if you're already subscribed and you want more of this for some reason, check out my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If you like basketball, more specifically NBA basketball, check out my basketball podcast. It's called Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. Check it out if you're interested. Let's get started. I will say there is this honorable mention. It's an honorable mention because it's technically not an album, but I want to give it its flowers because it is my favorite EP of this decade so far. And I'm not doing an EP list. I don't think I've heard enough EPs throughout the years to make a list like that. But I do want to give this project its flowers. So the honorable mention I have is Timez's Last Year Was Weird Volume 2. I love the mix of different genres on here with the hip-hop, pop, R&B, dance inspired track that is all over this little EP. And I say EP, but there's a good amount of tracks here. You'll definitely find something you'll love. She sounds super sweet on some tracks and super aggressive on others. Very impressive project from Timez. I've been loving to see her progression throughout the years, so shout out to her. So that's my honorable mention. Now let's talk about the top 50 albums of the decade so far. I'm gonna speed run the first half and then talk a little bit more after that. You know the drill by now, hopefully. So let's go. Number 50, I've got Steve Lacy with Gemini Rights. Number 49, Black Country New Road with For the First Time. Number 48, Tyler the Creator with Call Me If You Get Lost. Number 47, Porter Robinson with Smile. Number 46, Charli XCX with BRAT. Number 45, Billie Eilish with Hit Me Hard and Soft. Number 44, Smino with Love for Rent. Number 43, Beyoncé with Renaissance. Number 42, Jessie Ware with What's Your Pleasure. Number 41, Freddie Gibbs and the Alchemist with Alfredo. Number 40, Rina Sawayama with Sawayama. Number 39, Aesop Rock with Spirit World Field Guide. Number 38, The Weeknd with Dawn FM. Number 37, Turnstile with Glow On. Number 36, Jeff Rosenstock with Hell Mode. Number 35, Sampha with Lahai. Number 34 and 33 are both from Genesis Owusu. Number 34 is Genesis Owusu Struggler. And number 33 is Genesis Owusu Smiling with No Teeth. Number 32 is Travis Scott with Utopia. Number 31 is Group Therapy with I Was Mature for My Age But I Was Still a Child. Number 30, Magdalena Bay with Mercurial World. Number 29, Boldy James and Sterling Toles with Manger on McNichols. Number 29, Little Sims with No Thank You. Number 27, Jid with The Forever Story. And to round things off, number 26, I've got Slow Tie with Ugly. Alright, so we just sped run through the first half. Now let's get into the second half, which we are starting with number 25, Kanye West and Donda. I know it exploded. I know there's some tracks that could have been cut out, but for a long double album like this, I think it's a double album. I don't know. It's just super long. For a long album like this, there's so many quality tracks, and this is by far the best Kanye album since The Life of Pablo, when we are talking about, solo Kanye albums. And he hasn't done anything as good as Donda since. I love a lot of these tracks, its themes. I miss this Kanye, honestly. Number 24 goes to Denzel Curry with King of the Mischievous South Volume 2. This is a love letter to Southern hip hop. Denzel Curry does this subgenre justice, and it's honestly one of the best Denzel Curry albums in his discography. Number 23, No Worries with Wylon. Anderson .Paak and Knowledge does it once again, bringing us a killer album. This time it's a lot sadder. Anderson .Paak is talking about his divorce a lot on this album, but it was delivered in a beautiful way with the help of knowledge, and Anderson .Paak, as always, kills it on the vocals and writing. Number 22 goes to Kendrick Lamar and his album GNX, one of the most addicting rap albums on the list. I go back to it a lot, even though it was a recent release. With that said, it still has a lot of replay value for me. I love the West Coast vibes that he is going with here. It's a good mix of bangers and quality writing and moody, slower tracks. Kendrick Lamar killed it on this album. Number 21, Gorillaz with Song Machine Season 1 Strange Times. I wish there was a Season 2. I wish they continued with this series because it was fun. It was fun while it lasted. Gorillaz just decided not to be too conceptual, just decided to collaborate with a lot of other artists and just have fun, make cool music, and that's what we got here. We got a lot of great tracks off of this album. I really enjoy it. I wish they'd make another one soon, but we'll see. Number 20, I've got Brockhampton with Roadrunner, New Light, New Road. Most likely my favorite album of theirs, at least not part of the Saturation series. It's a crazy album that goes balls to the walls at times, has some awesome features from Danny Brown, A$AP Rocky, JPEG Mafia, A$AP Ferg. All the members of this group had their time to shine. Some of my favorite Brockhampton songs are on here. There's some emotional cuts as well. Shout out to the best boy band since One Direction. Number 19 goes to Injury Reserve. By the time I get to Phoenix, which is an emotional roller coaster that I can't go back to often, but it is an album that is worth your listen. This album was released after the death of Groggs, and although they did work on it a bit with Groggs, it was really Richie with the T and Parker taking the reins here and pouring out all of their emotion all over this album, dedicating it to Groggs in a very depressing way. A lot of the songs here are so haunting to listen to, so eerie at times as well, and it makes for an amazing final album for this trio. Number 18 and number 17 are from the same artist, and both of these albums are kind of similar, so I'll talk about them at the same time. We've got at number 18, Backxwash with His Happiness Comes First, Even Though We Are Suffering, and number 17 is from Backxwash, and it's called I Lie Here Buried With My Rings and My Dresses. Both of these albums are very dark, very aggressive. It feels like experimental hip hop, but with like an edge to it. And I'm not like saying that to be like corny or anything. Like, it's not that kind of edgy. There's like actual like despair to a lot of these tracks and a lot of dark themes about suicide, about being outcasted by religion, the difficult relationship Backxwash has with religion, the struggles of not only being a black woman, but being a black trans woman, being trans in a religious household. There's a lot of just dark themes on these projects, and luckily both of these projects are on the shorter side, so it's not like it's too much. You like get injected with a little bit of despair and then it's over. But yeah, even though I'm making it sound like it was torture to listen to, it's not. They're both amazing projects with insane rapping over these disturbing yet awesome beats. There's a lot of cool screaming in this thing. I love on His Happiness Comes First, Even Though We Are Suffering. The final track there ends off on a more hopeful note, which is very nice. But yeah, shout out to Backxwash. Pretty sure she's planning on releasing more music in 2025, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. But yeah, that's my 18 and 17 placement. Number 16 goes to Ghais Guevara with There Will Be No Super Slave. If you like sample heavy hip hop, check out this project. It is very innovative on the ways that Ghais samples random things. He sampled like the PlayStation startup sound. He sampled Silk Sonic. It's very cool. And the rapping here is great as well. So check that out. Number 15 goes to Si Tangana with El Madrileño, a great Spanish album. I think Si Tangana does a great job implementing newer music with past more classical sounds in regards to Spanish music, and he brings in a bunch of older artists to feature on this project to help blend those two worlds together. Number 14 goes to McKinley Dixon with Beloved Paradise Jazz, one of the best jazz rap albums you'll listen to. It's very short. It's a short project, which is like probably the only downside of this, because everything else about this album is great. The rapping is great. The production is gorgeous. Gorgeous production here. Highly recommend it. Number 13 goes to JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown with Scaring the Hoes. Two of the best underground experimental rappers coming together to make an insane project where they're both just having fun, trying to scare the hoes, even though some of these tracks are actually pretty catchy and fun to listen to. I could see some of them might scare the hoes. But yeah, they're both having fun. There's some funny lines in here, some clever lines as well. The production bangs. Danny Brown is sounding amazing. He's so witty on this thing. Number 12 goes to Spelling with The Turning Wheel, a very elegant and grandiose album. Very cinematic. It's a very cinematic album. It sounds like an old Disney movie, and Spelling really kills it with the vocals and the songwriting. It really sounds like you're listening to a musical the whole time. Number 11, right outside of the top 10, goes to Geordie Greep with The New Sound. This is one of the most wild rock albums I've heard in a while. It is so unique and so loony. It is a very quirky album, and it could be very out of pocket as well. The lyrics here could be very odd and maybe a turnoff for some people, but I like the absurdity of this album and how it blends in other genres like jazz and samba. So shout out to Geordie Greep. And yeah, that's 50 through 11. Now let's dive into the top 10. At number 10, we've got Tyler the Creator with Chromacopia. Chromacopia. What an album. What an album from Tyler. Top 3 Tyler album in my opinion. Tyler is going into a more vulnerable bag. He's being more personal than ever. Probably the most personal Tyler album since Flower Boy. Although each song doesn't necessarily link up with each other in a concise way, each song does provide a loose theme of just trying to be your true self, taking off that mask and be the person you want to be in life. And I love that message. I think Tyler delivers that message in beautiful ways, like on the track Take Your Mask Off. And with all that said, even though it is very personal, we still get those classic Tyler bangers like Sticky. There's some fun moments here, there's some more sad moments. It's a good mix. It's a good mix, and the production here is stellar. Like, it's Tyler the Creator production. Of course, it's gonna be amazing. So that is my number 10. Number 9 is actually an album that grew on me a lot throughout the years. I have given it more and more listens throughout the years, and I've been falling in love more and more with this album, and it's The Strokes with The New Abnormal. What a crazy album this is. The Strokes are back on The New Abnormal. The Strokes returned back to the world and brought in a totally new sound. They went in a different direction than they have been throughout their discography. Tried out some new things and it panned out great. Whether you talk about like some of the drumless production on here. Shout out to Rick Rubin who helped out. His creative input helped out this album a lot. There's songs here that I go back to a lot, like Ode to the Mets, Adults Are Talking. It has a lot of replay value. This album has been out for a while now and I still go back to it every time I want to hear something awesome. Julian Casablanca. Man, one of my favorite singing voices in music history. That man has incredible vocals. A lot of these songs are very emotional. There's a lot of passion in this album. It's a fun album to listen to. So yeah, this one grew on me a lot. So shout out to The Strokes, man. This is great. Number 8 goes to Little Simz with Sometimes I Might Be Introvert. One of the most ambitious rap albums you'll ever hear. It's Little Simz rapping over these elegant, orchestrated instrumentals with a lot of strings. It sounds like you're listening to like classical music, but with Little Simz spinning all over it. In a good way, of course. Little Simz dives into different themes like being a black woman and the struggles that comes with that. She talks about struggles with family. It is well written, well performed, and the grandiosity of it all makes it such a pleasure to listen to. It is truly an amazing experience putting this album on and listening to every single song here, especially since it flows so well. I like the little skits in there as well too. It's amazing. It really is. Number 7 goes to Silk Sonic with An Evening with Silk Sonic. A shorter project. It would have been cool to see more tracks on this thing, but what we got here is great. It's a lot of fun. Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars surprises the world with their amazing chemistry and brings back funk music and soul music to the mainstream in a way that I really enjoy. I know a lot of people might say that this is more diluted than the classics, which I understand. But with that said, I still have a lot of fun listening to this album. There's a lot of fun tracks. Both of these guys are very charismatic and incredible singers. Bruno Mars is by far one of the best mainstream pop artists. He's been one of the best mainstream pop artists for well over a decade now. And his voice sounds incredible over these more soulful instrumentals that Anderson .Paak thrives over all the time. And I'm glad that they're able to blend worlds and make some mashup. This is a cool ass album from a couple of cool dudes. So obviously this was gonna be amazing. I love it a lot. Very charismatic. Kind of short, but it's whatever. Number 6, we've got Mac Miller with Circles. One of the more depressing albums here as Mac Miller leaves the world with this album. This posthumous release where it was mostly completed. I believe John Bryan was the one who helped complete this album. When I say this album sounds heavenly, I'm not trying to like make a pun here. Like, it truly sounds heavenly. It's so gorgeous. You feel like you're in a bunch of clouds while listening to this album. Mac Miller is so soft-spoken on this project, giving really good performances and jumps into a bunch of themes, but the biggest one of them all is death and how he believes that he will be fine after he passes, which is crazy to hear coming from him, especially after he passed. It makes for an emotional listen, but a great one at that. So rest in peace to Mac Miller. This will forever be my favorite Mac Miller album. Like, I've cried to this album, man. Like, it's that emotional. It hurts. Not only the lyrics, but just hearing him at his final form and sounding so good. It's heartbreaking to listen to and to think about what we've lost. The world genuinely got a little worse after his passing. A shout out to Mac Miller. Rest in peace. Number 5, we've got Run the Jewels with Run the Jewels 4. I'm not being biased. As some of you know, I got a shout out by LP because I reacted to Run the Jewels 4. But I'm not being biased here because this is an incredible rap album that's not talked about enough, especially with how well timed this was released. I know they released it early, but it was brilliantly written. LP and Killer Mike are talking about these struggles that people go through, especially black people. They talk about stuff like police brutality, which during the time the BLM movement was in full force due to the murder of George Floyd. Seeing all that happen in the news and the movement being pushed and having Run the Jewels have the perfect album to soundtrack all of that was an incredible experience to be a part of, and I am very glad that they did that. They helped promote these messages and help uplift what is going on in the black community and how they are being harmed in America. Mix that with some killer futuristic production from LP, some great features as well, and you get yourself one of the most awesome rap albums of this decade so far. Number 4, I've got Kendrick Lamar with Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I love this album a lot. I'm probably the biggest Mr. Morale fan on earth. I still struggle trying to convince myself what is Kendrick's second best album. Is it Good Kid, Mad City? Is it Mr. Morale? I don't know. Because Mr. Morale to me is truly a masterpiece. It's Kendrick going over this like therapy session in front of us all, being the most vulnerable he's ever been in an album, going over some past trauma, going over the possible reasons on why he has trauma, going over some of the struggles he's gone throughout his life. And throughout the album, he learns more and more about the importance of taking care of himself, to the point where at the end of the track with Mirror, one of my favorite Kendrick songs of all time, he realized that before he can help save the world, he needs to help himself and fix himself. It's a beautiful album. I got a lot out of it, to be honest, and it makes me want to help myself and improve myself every day. So yeah, even though it's longer, there's some tracks here that are a bit odd, like We Cried Together. I still like going back to this album, listening to it from beginning to end, and enjoy this piece of art. Honestly, it's just such an amazing album, man. What can I say? All right, number 3, this is, I guess, my pop album of the decade so far, and that belongs to Magdalena Bay with Imaginal Disc. The future of pop music is here. Imaginal Disc provides such a compelling story, a weird story, a little sci-fi adventure, if you will, with themes of trying to figure out who you are, what society wants you to be, what's the true meaning of being human, the importance of love. All of these things are themes that Imaginal Disc covers in a very unique and clever way, done in a way only Magdalena Bay can do, over futuristic ass production that blows my mind on every listen. I get goosebumps listening to this album because of how daring some of the production is, how creative and wild they can be at times. There are so many jaw-dropping moments on this album that literally blows my mind every time I listen to this album, but especially on my first listen. On my first listen, I was blown away. I couldn't believe what I was listening to, but I'm glad I was able to be alive during this timeline in order to listen to an album this amazing. Like, this is genuinely like a blessing. I'm blessed to hear an album this good, and somehow did not become my album of the year for 2024, because that belongs to my number 2 spot, which is JPEG Mafia's album, I Laid Down My Life For You. JPEG Mafia has been one of my favorite rappers for the longest time, ever since his release of Veteran. And since then, he's been progressing in a way that most rappers can't. A lot of rappers stagnate. Not him. He keeps on becoming more creative, more unique. He keeps evolving with each project. And on this project, he delves into not only the world of experimental hip-hop, but the world of rock, combining them in a way only JPEG Mafia can. I know there's other artists that combine rock and hip-hop together, but nobody's done it like JPEG Mafia. JPEG Mafia did it in one of the most creative way possible, throwing in those electric heavy metal guitars in there, mixing it with his classic like glitchy experimental hip-hop beats. And not only doing that, but throwing in some strings in there at times, having some beautiful low-key songs, moodier songs. It's a blast listening to this album, not only because of the amazing production, but JPEG Mafia does this thing once again as a rapper, going off on his haters, going off at Nepo babies, because he is a villain after all. He is Dylan Brooks, but worse. He lets you know from the jump the energy he's on for most of the album. Most of the album is him just going at people, and then towards the end is where things dial down a bit. He gets a bit more personal, a bit more vulnerable, and ends off the album on the highest notes with the most beautiful JPEG Mafia songs you'll ever hear. So yeah, shout out to JPEG Mafia who killed it on this 10 out of 10 album. It is amazing. My rap album of the decade so far, if you even consider this rap. He dives in so much into the rock realm as well, and you know, his delivery could be very punk adjacent, that you could argue that this maybe kind of not really is a rock album, but nah, I'll say that's my rap album of the year, because the next album I'm going to talk about, the number 1 album of the decade so far, is a rock album, and it's Black Country New Roads, Ants From Up There, which is another album I would give a 10 out of 10 to. So only 2 10s this decade so far. Let's hope for more. But yeah, this is such an emotional roller coaster from the band. Unfortunately, before this album was released, Isaac Woods and the band parted ways. And if you didn't know, Isaac Woods is the lead singer of the band. So it does suck that Isaac Woods is no longer on the band. And I do like their stuff even without Isaac Woods, but still, I love his voice. He is one of the best frontmen in rock history, even though he was on only 2 albums. I still believe that. I think he is an incredible vocalist because he gives it his all on every single song here. He gives it his all. There's so much emotion and passion and drive into every single note he sings, every single lyric he says. There are so many impactful moments on this album, and a big reason why is because of Isaac. So I will always be grateful for his work, especially on this album that I can't get enough of. I love it a lot. I think the instrumentation here was done with so much care. You could really tell like that there's a purpose for every instrument, every note played. Every decision here had a purpose. I think there's truly amazing songs here, like the place where he inserted the Blade, Concord, just to name a couple. And not only that, but this album does have a special place in my heart because it did soundtrack one of the hardest times I've ever gone through, losing my grandpa. This album doesn't necessarily talk about death, even though it does have a few like sadder themes on this album, but death isn't really one of them. But with that said, the amount of emotion again within the production, within Isaac Wood's voice, kind of matched what I was feeling at the time when I realized that my grandpa was dying through cancer. It helped me during a very, very hard time. I talked about this more on one of my videos, my 10 albums I would consider a 10 out of 10 video. I talked about it more there. I ended up crying, and I'm trying to avoid crying now, so I'm gonna stop talking about that. But if you want to learn more about that, I'll link that video down below if you're curious. But yeah, long story short, stellar instrumentation, one of a kind vocalist delivering one of the most passionate performances I've ever heard on a rock album. Incredible poetry throughout this album, and it helped me during a very hard, difficult time. So because of all that, I am naming Ants from Up There the best album of the decade so far, midway through this decade, because yeah, I love it a lot. We'll see if there will be an album that tops this. I hope so. I really hope so, because that means there's gonna be more amazing music to come, more groundbreaking, life-changing music to come. But yeah, this is my album of the decade so far. I love it a lot. It will forever have a special place in my heart because of the way it has helped me in the past. So thank you to Black Country New Road. Thank you to Ants from Up There. Thank you to you guys for sticking around and watching this video. But yeah, that's it. That's my top 50 albums of the decade so far. Let me know your thoughts down below. And yeah, I'm done here. So thank you guys for watching. If you like the video makes sense, right? Comment down below. What is your favorite album of the decade so far? Mine is Black Country New Road with Ants from Up There. Let me know yours in the comments. If you like music related content like this, please subscribe, since that is what I do here. And if you're already subscribed and you want more of this for some reason, check out my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If you like basketball, more specifically NBA basketball, check out my basketball podcast. It's called Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. Check it out if you're interested. But I am done here, so thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. Goodbye. Yippee!